Interested now to welcome Nick Thomas-Symonds, Shadow Minister without portfolio, and for the first time, me interviewing this gentleman. Apparently, I'm told, and we'll go to him, he's not in front of that picture in his office. Where are you, Nick? Good God, man.
I'm actually on College Green in Westminster, Jeremy, but rest assured, if I was at home in South Wales, you would be seeing the painting.
Good man. Thanks for joining us on the New Drive show. Nick, I'm going to start with a question that Sir Jake Berry, ex-Tory party chairman, wanted me to put to you. He was on the show 40 minutes ago, and you know, we will be balanced. We want all people to have opinions. Rishi Sunak today, or rather overnight, announcing that the first person has left the United Kingdom, a migrant with £3,000, their mortgage or rent paid, I should say, for the next 5 years, took a commercial flight. The government undoubtedly will call this a win. Sir Jake Berry has his reservations, but he wanted me to say this to you. The Labour Party have made it absolutely clear that if you get into power, and there's a general election and you win power, you would reverse this. And he wanted me to ask you, why would you reverse something that's cost that amount of money that's beginning to work?
Well, because I dispute this idea that the scheme working is the government paying someone £3,000, a single person, to go to Rwanda. And I would politely say back to Jake Berry, I'd love to know what his definition of working is, because all we've seen so far with the Rwanda scheme is hundreds of millions of pounds being poured into it for very little or no, frankly, result. And what I would point out is that previous schemes of this kind, the Israeli government, for example, had a similar deal with Rwanda that they had to abandon back in 2018 because it didn't work. What Labour would be doing, if we are privileged enough to form a government, is we will be using the money that is allocated to the Rwanda scheme, firstly to create a new unit in the National Crime Agency focused on tackling the criminal smuggler gangs, working internationally, not just with France, with Belgium and other countries across Europe, which are the routes that are being exploited by people smugglers. Secondly, get a grip of the situation in the Home Office, where we have frankly, millions of pounds every day being spent on hotels because of the size of the backlog. And thirdly, get returns agreements in place so that when people are not entitled to be here, they can be returned. That's the kind of hard work we need to be doing, not what is frankly the Rwanda gimmick.
I mean, listen, I agree with the returns thing. I've said it. I've said it to anybody and everybody on the Tory side that, you know, if you can make a deal with Albania, which he did, Sunak, because let's be honest, a year ago, I think the highest percentage of male prisoners, foreign prisoners in UK prisons was Albanians at 8,000. That's worked. I would do that. People will be concerned, though, when they... Listen, it's the old thing, and we've talked about it on many occasions. You talk about a better relationship with Europe. There will always be the sceptics after Brexit who will say the Labour Party just want to take us straight back into Europe. We're paying, Nick, France £500 million a year. For what? Nothing, as I see it. There's a saving.
So just a couple of points. Firstly, on Albania, you're right, there's a returns agreement. But once the government had a returns agreement, they should have been fast-tracking people through our asylum system, knowing that there was that returns agreement in place for that group. So I think they missed a trick there. In relation to the bilateral relationship with France and the work that we do on joint law enforcement. Look, Jeremy, I've been down to Dover, I've been across to Paris in the past, and I've no doubt that the law enforcement officers, whether it is on the French side or indeed our services here, I've no doubt that those front-line law enforcement officers are working extremely hard, whether that's on the beaches across what is probably about 150 miles of coast in France, and indeed the work that our law enforcement are doing. So I'm not disputing that that work's going on. I've actually seen it with my own eyes. But is it at the level that we need it all to be systematically to really have a situation where we are not having a situation of these thousands of people arriving on small boats in the Channel? No, it isn't at that level, but the responsibility for that lies not with those law enforcement officers doing their best, it lies with the government and its lack of strategy.
Nick, I agree with that. We haven't got a lot of time. The Labour Party is quite fond of the phrase a new unit, a new body. I'll give you that, and I understand what you're saying about criminal gangs What I would like, on behalf of the British people, is to ask you this, a very succinct question. To me, we can talk about processing systems in France, processing systems here. We can talk about Kigali. We can talk about 3 grand. We can talk about gangs. To me, it's an absolute national disgrace that 178,000 people are yet to be processed. I don't think it says anything about us as a country that we cannot get our finger out and get this sorted. How would Labour, very succinctly, how would you deal with that 178,000 backlog if you get elected?
So there are 2 things that we need to do, and I indicated one of them in an earlier answer. Firstly, when you've got a returns agreement and you know you've secured it, you fast-track the people for that country through the system. And that's what the government failed to do with regard to Albania. Secondly, quite frankly, it's about headcount, it's about numbers. It's about the numbers in the Home Office that you are actually devoting to clearing this backlog. Because if you look back to 2014, Jeremy, at that time, over 80% of these asylum claims were being dealt with within 6 months.
It's a fact, ladies and gentlemen.
In the last 10 years has been the numbers go completely out of control.
Listen, we appreciate... oh, go on. No, we're both gone.
And just really to add that now we see that chaos that we now have in the system has to be an urgent priority for any government to solve.
Nick, always good to have you on, my friend, and good to get the Labour view. They are 20 points ahead in the opinion polls. Thank you for making it talk. We'll have him on again very soon.